Imagine you're one of the most exclusive car manufacturers on the planet. You build fewer than 100 cars a year. Each one costs more than most people's houses. Your engineering team spends thousands of hours hand-finishing every single component. And then one morning you open YouTube and see a bloke in a British workshop taking a grinder to your car's carbon fiber tub. That reportedly is roughly the situation Bugatti found itself in earlier this year. And the response from their CEO was not what anyone saw coming. We're talking about Mat Armstrong, the UK-based restorer and YouTuber who has built a massive following buying written-off supercars and bringing them back from the dead. We're talking about Bugatti Rimac, one of the most litigious and brand-protective companies in the hypercar world. And we're talking about a situation that has now spilled well outside the comment section and into what sources describe it as formal legal correspondence between parties on both sides. This is a story about what happens when YouTube car culture collides head-on with old European money, and nobody walks away clean. If you're not familiar with Mat Armstrong, here's the quick version. He started posting restoration content a few years back. Crashed Lamborghinis, smashed McLarens, that kind of thing, and built a subscriber base now well north of 3 million. His format is straightforward. Buy a car with a salvage title or major structural damage, document every step of the rebuild, and either keep it, sell it, or generate a follow-up controversy. The drama tends to find him. He's had run-ins before. There were questions raised in the UK car community about whether some of his cars were properly registered and roadworthy after restoration, and he addressed those publicly with mixed results. He's not universally loved. There's a segment of the automotive world that looks at what he does and sees corner cutting, but his audience clearly doesn't agree because the views keep climbing. Now, the Bugatti chapter. According to multiple sources tracking this story, Armstrong allegedly acquired a heavily damaged Bugatti Chiron, reportedly a pre-owned example with significant chassis and bodywork damage, acquired through a European salvage auction or specialist broker, depending on which account you believe. The exact purchase price hasn't been confirmed, but Chirons in that kind of condition have reportedly changed hands for anywhere between £300,000 and £600,000, which is still a staggering number, but represents a steep discount from the car's original £2.5 million price tag. Here's where this story gets genuinely complicated from an engineering standpoint, and it's worth slowing down for a second. The Bugatti Chiron isn't a car you can fix the way you'd fix a crashed BMW. The core of the car, what Bugatti calls the carbon fiber monocoque chassis, is a single structural piece that takes Bugatti's own factory reportedly over a month to produce. It's not something you can repair at home. You can't weld a carbon fiber tub the way you'd weld steel. You can't straighten it. If that structure is compromised in any meaningful way, Bugatti's position, and really the position of any serious engineer who has looked at the car, is that the car should not be on public roads again. Bugatti has historically been very clear about this. They've said publicly that any Veyron or Chiron involved in a significant accident should be returned to Molsheim, that's their factory in France, for assessment, and that they reserve the right to refuse to service or certify cars they deem structurally unsafe. That's not just brand protectiveness. There's a legitimate safety argument there, because these cars produce over 1,500 horsepower and can hit over 300 kilometers per hour. If something fails at speed, we're not talking about a bodywork scuff. Now, before we go further, this is a good moment to hit like and subscribe if you're not already. This story is still developing, and if you want to stay across it as more information comes out, turning on notifications is the move. We'll be covering every update as it happens. So Armstrong begins documenting the restoration. Early videos show assessment, teardown, parts sourcing. According to people who've watched the series closely, the footage was compelling. These cars are genuinely extraordinary pieces of engineering up close, and the audience responded accordingly. Views were substantial from the... Here's where it gets interesting, because the response from the car world wasn't just curious, it was divided. A lot of enthusiasts were watching with genuine excitement, but a significant portion of automotive journalists, engineers, and even some fellow YouTubers started raising questions publicly. The primary concern, could a private restoration actually return a Chiron to the standard where it should be driven on public roads? And who would sign off on that? Those questions reached Bugatti. According to sources familiar with the matter, Bugatti's team was aware of the series and had been monitoring it. Not an unusual response for a manufacturer this protective of their brand. What was unusual was what came next. Mat Rimac, the CEO of Bugatti Rimac, who is by any measure one of the most interesting figures in the modern car industry, reportedly did not stay quiet. Now, Rimac is not your typical CEO. He's Croatian, he's in his mid-30s, and he built his company from scratch in a garage before eventually merging it with Bugatti under the Volkswagen Group umbrella. He's been on multiple long-form podcasts, he's unusually candid for someone in his position, and he has a reputation for engaging directly with criticism rather than routing everything through PR. So when Rimac's name started appearing in connection with this story, people paid attention. What he allegedly said, and the word allegedly is doing real work here because the full picture is still not confirmed, was something to the effect that the restoration of a structurally compromised Chiron without factory involvement was not just a brand issue, but a genuine safety issue, and that Bugatti was exploring its options. That's a careful, lawyerly way of saying something, and it was apparently said in a semi-public context, which is how it began circulating. Armstrong responded in a video, directly and, by most accounts, fairly calmly. He pushed back on the characterization of the car's damage, said the assessment of structural compromise was being overstated, and maintained that the work being done was to a professional standard. He also suggested pointedly that Bugatti's reluctance to engage with independent restorations was less about safety and more about controlling the market for their own service department, which charges accordingly for Chiron work. That's a serious allegation, and it's the kind of thing that gets lawyers interested. The legal dimension of this, as far as can be established from public information, is still in early stages. There are reports, unconfirmed, that formal correspondence has been exchanged between Armstrong's representatives and Bugatti's legal team. What's in that correspondence, if it exists, is not publicly known. But the mere fact that it's reportedly happening tells you something about how seriously both sides are taking this. From Bugatti's perspective, the stakes are clear. If a privately restored Chiron is driven on public roads and something goes wrong, not even something catastrophic, just something that raises questions about the restoration quality, that's a brand liability problem of significant magnitude. Bugatti does not sell a high volume of cars, which means each one is individually weighted in terms of reputation. A Chiron involved in a restoration-related incident would generate international press. Their response to that possibility is entirely predictable. From Armstrong's perspective, the stakes are different, but equally real. He's built his entire platform on the idea that these cars can be brought back, that the salvage title system is navigable, and that the big manufacturers don't have the monopoly on competence that they sometimes imply. If Bugatti can successfully argue, legally or just through public narrative, that what he's doing is unsafe, that undermines a significant portion of his credibility and potentially his business model. And then there's the audience sitting between these two positions, trying to figure out who to believe. The comments on Armstrong's videos are a genuinely interesting place to spend time right now. You've got hardcore supporters who think Bugatti is throwing its weight around. You've got automotive engineers who've weighed in with detailed technical objections to specific decisions in the build. You've got lawyers who've commented on the liability implications. And you've got people who have no particular technical opinion, but are absolutely riveted by the interpersonal conflict between a self-made YouTuber and a self-made CEO, because that's also a compelling story. What it's produced is one of the highest engagement comment sections in automotive YouTube in recent memory, and that's not nothing. YouTube's algorithm rewards this kind of sustained engagement, which means the story is going to stay visible regardless of what. There's a broader question lurking underneath all of this, and it's one that the car industry has been circling for a few years now without fully resolving it. At what point does a car become so complex that private restoration crosses a line? The Chiron is an extreme example, but the principle extends. Modern hypercars are software-dependent, aerodynamically calibrated, structurally engineered to tolerances that weren't achievable even 2 decades ago. The Chiron's active suspension, its all-wheel drive torque vectoring, its aerodynamic systems, these are not things you can verify with a torque wrench. They require factory diagnostic tools, calibration equipment that costs more than most workshops, and engineering knowledge that simply isn't publicly available. Bugatti would say, "This is why you come to us." Critics would say, "This is also very convenient for your service revenue." Both things can be true at the same time, and that's what makes this genuinely interesting, rather than just a brand protection story. The Mat Armstrong situation has essentially forced this conversation into the open in a way that trade publications have been tiptoeing around for years. Because when a YouTuber with 3 million subscribers is doing it on camera, everyone has to take a position. As of the time of making this video, here's where things apparently stand. The restoration series is ongoing. Bugatti has not made a formal public statement beyond what's circulated through secondary sources. Armstrong has continued to post and has not indicated he's planning to stop the project. And Mat Rimac, who is characteristically active on social media and in interviews, has not directly addressed Armstrong by name in any public forum, which is itself a choice worth noticing. The silence from Rimac publicly, combined with the alleged activity behind the scenes, suggests that Bugatti is being strategic about how they engage. Going directly after a YouTuber in public is a losing proposition for a luxury brand. It elevates the YouTuber, it generates sympathy, and it makes the manufacturer look like they're punching down. The smarter play, if you're Bugatti, is to do whatever you're going to do quietly and let the legal process work if it comes to that. Whether that's what's actually happening is something we'll have to watch. What's clear is that this story has legs. It touches on salvage title law, which varies significantly between the UK and European jurisdictions, and adds a whole layer of complexity that we'll get into in a follow-up. It touches on manufacturer warranties and what they actually mean when a car changes hands multiple times. And it touches on the very personal conflict between two people who are, in their own very different ways, both trying to prove something. Armstrong is trying to prove that competence isn't a manufacturer's exclusive property. Rimac is trying to protect something he spent years building, both the Bugatti brand and, genuinely, a technical legacy he cares about. These are not unreasonable positions. They're just incompatible in this particular situation. Where it ends depends a lot on what happens in the next few weeks. If the legal correspondence is real and escalates, we're potentially looking at an injunction attempt, which would be extraordinary and almost certainly generate even more attention than the restoration videos themselves. If both sides back down and the car gets finished quietly, that's its own kind of story. Either way, we're watching. If you want to stay across every development in this as it happens, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications, and we are going to cover this properly every step of the way. And if you found this useful, the like button helps more people find the story. In the next video, we're going to get into the legal mechanics of what Bugatti could actually do here, what UK and EU salvage and road certification law says about restorations like this, and whether Armstrong's position is as solid as he's suggesting. That one will be worth your time. We'll see you there.